Hello everybody, and welcome back to forging a pattern-welded Anglo-Saxon Seax. Part 2 this week. We are going to forge out the shape and give it a rough grind. So this is the billet as of the end of the last episode. All forge welded together, no cold shuts, quite a nice result. It's quite a lot on the thick side, but I want to grind into twisted bars in order to obtain a star pattern. So I'm going to leave that quite thick. Quite this thick though, so I am going to draw it down a little bit. I think it's currently 16mm thick, and I'm going to take it down to 12mm thick, which is half an inch. So I will do this under the power hammer. If you don't have a power hammer, you can do it by hand. It will just take a little bit longer. If you have a friend with a sledgehammer, that's even better. So once it's down to the thickness I want, I'm going to mark 2 inches from the end of the bar and centre dot it. And this will be set down and drawn out to form the tang of the Seax. So again, you can do this by hand. You could use a spring fuller and draw out the material isolated. Again, to save time, I'm using the power hammer. So with the tang drawn out, I'm going to measure 10 inches from the hilt of the tang, mark that up, and then I'm going to mark 5 inches from the hilt of the tang and draw a line. And I'm going to chisel split this line off, and that will form the point of the Seax. Chiseling the shape in rather than forging it in, because I don't want to deform the bands of pattern welding in there. If I forge them in, they're just going to taper out towards the point, and I want them to curve upwards quite gracefully. I'm just going to mark it lightly first, so that I don't lose the line I've drawn. Now, the point needs to be more than 5 inches from the crest of the brokeback, but it will stretch out by that when I'm forging in the bevels. Also, I want the point to be central to the blade. And as you can see here, it is not at all central. However, when I forge the bevels, it will force it to curve upwards, which will then centralise the point for me. So as you can see, here are the bands of pattern welding. I did have a little bit of delamination on the end, which I was kind of expecting. So I heated up the Seax again, starting with the middle, fluxed the end, and welded it back up again. So using borax because there's high carbon steel involved in this. So that's that all welded up. I will now heat up the Seax itself, the whole solid lump of it, and using the wet anvil technique, which I do use occasionally, I will give it a good scrub first and start forging out these bevels. So this involves holding the billet at a slight angle and holding your hammer at a slight angle and just basically forging the edge. You have to keep the carp's mouth under control, which will start forming. As you can see, the point is starting to curl up on its own. So it looks a little bit like a Bowie knife at the moment. So I don't want it to be too curved. I don't want it to look like Alibaba's slippers. So I want a nice straight line on that end. So I'll just form that in there. Make sure the bevel stays central. I want it to taper inwards towards the tang as well, which is what I'm doing here. Most Seaxes were thinner at the transition from the handle to the blade than in the central part of the blade. They're kind of bellied out. So here we go. It is now roughly formed. So it has a nice constant bevel. So at this stage I will just use the angle grinder to knock off the scale I'm not really doing a huge amount of grinding to shape at this stage. I am just knocking off the scale, which makes it a bit easier for the linisher belt to eat into the steel. So using nice regular sweeping movements and a bucket of water to keep the blade cool, I am now taking some of this mass off. And I'm aiming for a spine thickness of around 10mm. So I'll start profiling it as well at this stage. Now I wanted to do the edges of the blade before profiling it because that would give me a reference point as to what needed to be where. So again, nice sweeping movements, and I'm keeping the forge tidy by catching the sparks and grind dust in a bucket. And you can see the pattern welding starting to stand out now from the grinder. I think this will be quite a nice blade. Getting that spine straight and cleaning up that transition for the broke back bit. Probably has a proper name. I just call it the broke back. But it's kind of like a clip point. So these lines you can see in the blade, at first I thought they were delaminations, but they're not. It's literally the grain of the iron showing through. So when I've when I polish this up properly, those will hopefully have been ground out. So here we go. This is the roughly ground blade. I didn't actually have time to give it a polish, so I'll probably do that during the week. Next episode, hopefully we will heat treat it and possibly start on a handle. So thanks for watching, thanks for following this project. If you enjoy these videos, please consider donating on Patreon. A massive thank you to everybody who is already donating on Patreon. It's a massive help and I do appreciate it a lot. Here's a list of this week's Patreon donors. If you're not able to help out on Patreon, please like, subscribe, and most importantly, please share these videos. So thanks a lot guys, and I will see you on the next one.